What the movie studio executive wants is a blockbuster. A kind of star-studded wham-bam action-adventure love story that makes everybody feel like they're a kid again, preferably rakes in hundreds of millions of dollars for 21st Century Fox and all of its conglomerates. What the movie studio executive has a hard time admitting to himself is that he doesn't want this blockbuster so much as he doesn't need it. Because his job's on the line because he hasn't greenlit a profitable feature film in 3 years. Because you see, despite all the projections of his projection men, Pregnancy Scare, a horror movie about a pregnant woman whose unborn baby starts telling her to kill deadbeat dads, and Humanity, a science fiction film about a guy who accidentally turns himself into a manatee, somehow failed to be the box office catnip of the studio executive that sort of hoped they'd be. And so the studio guy calls up this up-and-coming writer guy with a protruding neckbeard and a cigarette fuck voice, and he sits him down in his office and he tells him plainly and clearly that what he wants is a blockbuster wham-bam action-adventure love story that makes everybody feel like a kid again and preferably includes science fiction elements. For the writer guy, he was sort of distracted and his mind was a million miles away because this girl he'd always been in love with had dropped back in town the other day, and as the studio executive was talking, all he could think about was the way she said his name and the way her hand touched his chest and lingered for a minute when she said goodnight to him the other night. And so when the studio executive guy said that he wanted a movie with science fiction elements, what the writer heard was science fiction elephants. And so when he came back a few months later with an 150-page manuscript, what he had was a goddamn magnum opus science fiction spectacle about living, breathing, biologically engineered elephants and the lovelorn men who flew them around the galaxy and shot laser beams out of their trunks. And so the studio guy gave it a once-over, and the script was a mess, and it was literally titled Science Fiction Elephants. And there were about a dozen unrequited love subplots that he didn't quite understand the origin of, but he was desperate and he needed something, and so he greenlit it and he handed it over to the director guy. And when the director guy got a script titled Science Fiction Elephants with a handwritten note from the studio guy that had to make everybody feel like they were a kid again, he read it over and thought to himself that it was odd for a would-be blockbuster. Kind of funny and kind of sad, like a clown in an abortion clinic. And the director knew all about sad because his dad was in hospice care right then, dying of terminal lung cancer and coughing and crying and saying occasionally racist shit to all too patient nurses. And the director visited him every day, and he prayed and he prayed and he goddamn prayed, but it never did any good. And his dad got sicker and sicker, and the director guy was just feeling a sincere lack of control in his life. And so when he was handed the Science Fiction Elephants project, he decided to take all the control he could get and pulled some seriously fucked up Kubrickian shit by coming to the set each day dressed in a Nazi officer's uniform that he had listed from wardrobe and shouting at his cast and crew in broken German about how they were making the kind of movie that was going to make everyone feel like a kid again. And the person the director yelled at most was this lead actor chick who played the protagonist's unrequited love interest. And there was this one scene in particular where the protagonist was scripted to fly by her apartment late at night on one of his biologically engineered science fiction elephants, and then sees this girl bareback on the bed fucking the living brains out of the guy's arch nemesis. The actress, though, had placed a no nudity clause in her contract for this particular film, because after doing some self-googling, she had discovered that by appearing nude in 3 or 4 action movies, she'd become the unwilling masturbatory target for a legion of teenage boys who locked themselves in the basement all day and ejaculated all over their checkered boxers of choice. And so for this particular scene, she had her body double stand in for her. Her body double being this real enthusiastic woman, a few years younger than she was, but twice as idealistic, and had a body that could conceivably pass off as the lead actresses. And so during the filming of the scene, the double had the supreme pleasure of meeting the lead actress's husband, this sort of slimy guy who sold cocaine on the slide and who hung around his wife's movie sets all day, schmoozing with A-listers and offering to sell them shit just off the back lot. And so anyway, the actress notices her husband and her body double getting kind of chummy whenever they're both on set, and she doesn't quite trust it like she never quite trusts him. And so one day she takes him aside and confronts him about his alleged infidelity. She says, I know I can be crazy and I know I can get paranoid, and so if I'm being a paranoid, crazy psycho bitch, then please just tell me, but I need to know whether or not you're having an affair with this girl. And her husband probably could have gotten away with it, but he was never really good under pressure, and he had trouble with honesty, and so the thing he tells her next, he sort of sings it sort of awkwardly. He sings, well, I know that I'm in trouble because I fucked your body double, and you were really quite explicit when you asked me not to do that. And then she slaps him in the face and screams something at him about how he's always been a mama's boy, always been sucking at the teat, and she takes all that anger into work with her and starts channeling it into a performance. And suddenly this paper-thin role has some depth to it and some heart to it, and so she stays with this guy, this shit-faced, coke-selling, umbilical cord-attached husband of hers, because she thinks he's giving her a stronger performance for the science fiction elephant movie that's supposed to be making everybody feel like a kid again. And that mission statement, that thesis statement, it's on everybody's mind at the premiere screening 8 months later. And as they're watching the final cut, they're thinking hard about how badly they want to be transported by it. Like they were the first times they saw Indiana Jones or Jurassic Park, how badly they want to make it all, they want to make them all feel like kids again. But as the biologically engineered elephants are flying by on the screen, the opposite is happening. The studio executive is thinking about how fucked he is if the movie flops. The writer is thinking about how he never did tell that girl that he was in love with her. The director is thinking about his dad, about how the last thing thing he ever said was something about some woman named Morgan who we'd never heard of. And the actress is thinking about leaving her husband, but she's also thinking about how if she stays with him a while longer, she might be able to land some really prestigious roles and really make something of herself. So they're all just sitting there, letting the images on the screen pass them by without really looking at them. And they're all feeling as old as they've ever felt. Well, all of them anyway, except for the actress's husband, who ducked away to the bathroom right after the body double nude scene. And so he sits on the toilet, bare-assed, with his hands wrapped around his cock, and across from him on the stall door, somebody has written in red that the unexamined life is not worth living, and then just above that in black, fuck the police. And as he jerks himself off to some actress in some second-rate science fiction feature, he feels 14 again. He feels like he could be orgasming for the first time. He feels like he has the whole rest of his life ahead of him, like he's never graduated middle school, never smoked cocaine, and never kissed a pretty girl. Thank you so much.